time once again to slip into your camo, grab your bow, and join us out in the field for another episode of the Up North Journal, presented by PSE Archery. The Up North Journal crew is knocked and ready to rock for another exciting adventure, so let's step outside and hit the trail.
This episode of the Up North Journal podcast is brought to you by PSE Archery,
Deer Camp Coffee,
Buck Baits,
JPO Game Calls,
The Island Armory,
Packer Max,
Sunrise Archery,
and C3 Better the Hunt Technology.
Welcome back to another episode of the Up North Journal, everybody. Host Mike Adams sitting in the cabin tonight with none other than Dan DeFall, sitting on the front edge of a cold front that's coming through.
Means
deer season is on the way.
Right, and we're a week and a half away from the official start of bow hunting here in Michigan.
Yep.
We've had a couple small seasons, Youth, Liberty. We had an early antlerless last week.
Yep.
But man, week and a half.
It's going to be game on. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's get some people some savings here and get our sponsorship out of the way.
Absolutely. I tell you what, folks, so this close to deer season, if you haven't already checked out Buck Baits, go to buckbaits.com. I was at the brick and mortar store today at Deer Camp. Talked to Julie, and if you use the promo code UNJ20, you get 20% off your order at buckbaits.com. Don't forget the Easy Cuts. Get 15% off with UNJ15 off. Go to easycutproducts.com. Check them out. Clear away right to your stand. It's never too late to talk to Lincoln Rowan over at Packer Max. Get $25 off your order. UNJ25, packermax.com. Give Lincoln a call. Well, we're talking about bow, but is it ever really a bad time to go over to the Island Armory and check out their gun selection?
Never.
Right. And if you want 10% off, use UNJ10, get 10% off your order. Like I said, check out their site. It changes daily. You need that goose call, that squirrel call. You need maybe
a deer grunt
call. Go to jpogamecalls.com. Use the code UNJ10, get 10% off your order. We've had them on the show, Miller Deer Tracking. They're going to give you 20% off. If you need their help, give them a call. Use the code UNJ20. He'll give you 20% off that tracking of your needs when you're looking for that deer. But don't forget, it might be fall hunting season everywhere, but don't forget Southern Indiana Bait Co. Go down to their website, check out their lures that they have, and if you want 10% off, use the code UNJ10. You get 10% off your order there. And last but not least, Deer Camp Coffee. Like I said, I was there today. I picked up a bag of Bada Boom cannoli flavored, folks. That's right. I'm going to try cannoli flavor. I bought Mike pumpkin spice because it's the season. Don't forget, use the promo code UNJ10. Get 10% off your order at deercampcoffee.com. And don't forget to get a bag of UNJ coffee, our own medium roast label there.
So, weather's cold, but how cold is it right now up north? Where are we going tonight?
We are going up to where it is a nice, balmy 58 degrees in Newberry, Michigan. That's right, 58. And if you go over to Cedars, you get some pizza and some Deer Camp coffee, and you can have it up there in the UP of Michigan. And we're carried on 123 FM up in Newberry.
There you go, folks. Well, let's not waste any time. I'm excited about tonight's show, and I'm excited about having tonight's guest here. And we want to welcome none other than Kip Adams from the National Deer Alliance Association. Kip, thank you for coming on the show tonight.
Hey, thanks, guys. I'm glad to be here.
It is awesome time of the year. You know, it's the special time. We're sitting on cold fronts. We're waiting on these big fronts to move through and weather change to get these deer moving and get into the tree stand or in a ground blind of some sort. It's got to be exciting where you're at, too.
Absolutely. Here in northern Pennsylvania, we've been having some cool nights. It's in the 40s every night for the last couple of weeks. One night dipped down into the high 30s. So can definitely feel, that crisp air. We're still in the 70s during the day, so it's nice and warm. Still a lot of folks wearing shorts. People are still wearing shorts doing some habitat work or setting blinds. But those cool mornings let you know that, it is almost here. Our bow season doesn't open until October 1st. We're one of the later ones to get going, but I'll say for me and my kids' standpoint, we are chomping at the bit. October can't get here soon enough.
Amen to that. That is definitely for sure.
And you know what? It's you get that cold, cool morning, and as we get into the fall, and you start to see the leaves change. And I tell you, you're right. You just start itching. It's like you get up, you start to look at the deer. I know some of the deer on my camera up in the UP that they've, they're switching over their coats and everything, and
it's like the week before Christmas.
It is.
We can see the presents under the tree. We know it's coming, but we just got to wait till that opening morning. Well, instead of opening presents, it's opening day for us. So I'm pumped.
And we're having you on today for the National Deer Association, and congratulations on your 20th year there, QDMA/National Deer Association. How's it feel to be there 20 years?
Well, thank you for that. I don't feel old enough to have been there for 20 years yet. I'd say this, it's been a great ride. Whitetail deer and this organization have taken me, across North America to places that I could have only or never imagined having gone. So I'm very fortunate to work for the NDA. Very fortunate to have got to see and travel and meet all the great hunters and deer managers across this country. So I'm very blessed, and it has gone by way too quickly. It's hard to believe it's 20 years.
I know, right? And that's with any job, it seems like. Before you know it, you've been there 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years. I've had a few guys at work finally retire. They're in the 40s, 45-year range, and it's like, wow. But if you enjoy what you do, you're going to be it and love it there. But you said something just before we went on the show that you are happy that something happened today at the National Deer Association that was unexpected that we were going to talk about. But go ahead and talk about what you guys kicked off today.
Oh, yeah. We're certainly big in the R3 movement, into recruiting new hunters. And, because we know that our hunter numbers are, declining. Hunters are getting older. They certainly aren't replacing them, like when you guys were young or when I was young. Everybody hunted. And it's very different than today. And we all know that. So a lot of conservation organizations and state wildlife agencies, look at the R3 movement to try to, recruit new hunters and reactivate hunters. Well, from our end of it, we are super proud of what we call our Field to Fork program, where we take adults who want to learn how to hunt, maybe didn't grow up in a hunting family like I did or like you guys did, that later in life decide, I would love to do this. Well, you guys know it's a lot harder to start hunting than it is a lot of other things. Like if you want to learn to play golf when you're older, you can buy a book, you can watch YouTube videos. It's easy to get into golf or
right.
Bowling or whatever. Hunting is very different. So our Field to Fork program takes adults who want to learn to hunt, and we match them with a mentor who can teach them how to do that. How to be able to go afield, how to find deer, how to field dress deer, all that. So anyway, today is a special day for us because we recently signed a contract with the Pennsylvania Game Commission to hire a Field to Fork coordinator who will work in Pennsylvania, and her job is every day is to facilitate Field to Fork hunts, provide opportunities for hunters who want to learn but don't have somebody to take them, to actually match them with somebody to be able to take them. So there are a lot of very lucky aspiring hunters today in the Keystone State who over the course of the next year are going to get an opportunity to go hunting because of this great hire that we had that starts today. So we're super excited about that.
We talked with Chad Stewart, deer biologist here in Michigan, the DNR, a couple weeks back, and we were talking about the recruitment and the retention and the reactivation of the hunters here in Michigan, the 3 R's like you're talking about. But he said they're focusing on kind of like the millennials, that 20 to 30 age range, because, he said it's hard to get the young kids to go because if they're not already going, they don't have anybody to take them, and there's kind of a gap there. So they're looking at the people who are young enough to get out, have the money to get out, to learn, but also when they have kids, and hopefully they'll bring them up. Are you doing the same thing or seeing kind of the same things across the country in Pennsylvania?
Absolutely. Yep,
okay.
Absolutely. And, we have done a lot of youth events over the years, and a lot of people have, and you feel great about them. But at the end of the day, a youth hunter can't take himself hunting or herself hunting or go buy a bow or a gun or camouflage. So there's nothing wrong with youth events, and we continue to do a bunch of them. But what we realize is if we really want to move the needle, you need to start doing this with adults. And it is incredible the number of college-age kids today who want to do this, and then folks even older than college age. So, yeah, from the adult hunting end, we start focusing in on as soon as somebody, is able to drive and take himself or herself, and be able to, certainly once they're out of college, now they start having the means to, to purchase a gun or a bow and the camouflage and a license. And the cool thing is, if we teach them, they not only then can go, but they are far more likely than to also mentor somebody else, either take a youth, or take another adult. Perfect example. We have their place there in Michigan, the Back 40, started by Mark Kenyon from Meat Eater.
Yeah,
They donated it to us a year ago. We had our first field to fork hunts on that last year. Mark was there. He's a great personal friend and a great friend of the organization. He mentored, one of the hunters. Well, anyway, fast forward 1 year now, last weekend was the second year of it. And every single person that we had there hunting shot a deer last weekend.
Nice.
Including the first two were mentored by people who were mentees last year. So they shot their first deer last year. They came back and are mentoring and sharing, what they know this year. And so pretty cool that everybody that hunted there last weekend shot a deer or shot a doe. And two of them were taken by people being mentored by folks who shot their first deer there last year at this time. So that is just super exciting. A great thing, for the future of hunting. A great thing, for people who think, man, maybe I'd like to do this. Hey, yeah, there's folks out there willing to take you, willing to share their time, their experience. So, that's very cool. And, my tip of the hat goes off, to Michigan, where this property is and where there are so many willing mentors.
That is awesome.
Well, that's also important as stewards of the land and in the hunting community, that we are able to do that. Like Mark, like you said, the 40 acres, has said, hey, let's do it. Sharing our experiences and not being that closed-minded. I'm not going to tell you where I'm going to kill my deer. I'm not going to show you. But more times than not, in the hunting community, it seems like we're more than gracious enough. Somebody raises their hand and says, hey, I want to try it. Most of the time, we're always like, hey, let's figure out a time.
Let's make it happen.
And I see you've had over 107 of those Field to Fork events hosted by NDA since your program's in session. And also, the 17 million acres that is impacted by the NDA. I tell you what, people, you got to go over to the deerassociation.com website and check them out. You can page through it. They got a lot of great articles. They even got some podcasts over there. And then you can learn more about how the Deer Association is working. And they're even engaged in policies annually, over 200 there. A little bit about that. You're pretty much where it's needed you're going to all the states, correct?
It is, yep. So we work with all the state wildlife agencies. We have great friends at Michigan DNR and have worked very closely with your agency for a number of years. And so that's great for the agency. It's great for the hunters of the state. Certainly good for our NDA members within those states. But, we like to be good friends. We like to have good partnerships because that just helps the resource. It helps our hunting opportunities.
Absolutely. And since we just talked about policies, we're going to go to our first break. But we're going to come back. We're going to talk about a policy here in Michigan called mandatory deer check. And we're going to talk a little bit about that.
I think we can talk a long time about that. All right. We're going to step outside. We take our first break. We'll be right back after these.
PSE Archery has reinvented the way you buy bows.
From now on, you can make the most educated decision possible
by basing your bow choice specifically on your shooting needs and goals.
All you need to do is ask yourself, what kind of shooter am I? What do I want to achieve?
PSE will help find the right category for you.
So, what kind of shooter are you?
Find out at psearchery.com.
All right, second segment. Before we went to the break, we talked about the new policy here in Michigan.
Exactly. This year, for the first year of mandatory deer check here in Michigan, this year, they've come out with an app, or you can go online to fill out your registration if you kill a deer. But Kip, talking to you before the show, Pennsylvania's been doing this a long time. Am I correct?
That's correct. Yep. Pennsylvania and a whole bunch of other states have mandatory requirements for mandatory harvest registration.
I tell you what, I guess Michigan's better late than never, right?
Well, speaking of that, I've got the report. We just dialed this up before we went on tonight. 7:06 p.m. It was 9,672. We did have a antlerless hunt
over the weekend.
So is tonight at midnight is the last time?
Yeah,
update, right?
Well, whatever, 72 hours from 8, whatever the.
Okay, so we're going to see if it updates.
Right, exactly. So in Pennsylvania, how are your deer hunting folk accepting mandatory deer check? Is it now just a normal thing, or did it take a little bit, or did you have to do some prodding to get them to do it, or what's your take on that in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, the vast majority of hunters here have never hunted at a time when you didn't have to report. So it's just that's just always been the rule. I started hunting when I was 12 in 1982. At that time, you couldn't hunt before that, and it was a rule then. And so I have never hunted at a time in Pennsylvania when you didn't have to report. So it's just always been a rule. Now, having said that, not everybody, reports the way that they should, but it is required here. And there's different states, that go after this different ways. So like in Michigan, where in the past you didn't have to, some people will say, well, you can't get a good accurate estimate of the number of deer that are shot. And actually that's not true. Some states do it like Pennsylvania always did, where, hey, you have to report. Some states do it like Michigan used to, where you don't have to. And then after the season, the State Wildlife Agency would survey a subset of the hunters to be able to estimate the actual deer kill. Mm-hmm. And those can be very, very accurate. So there's different ways to go about it. However, one of the big advantages if you do require mandatory checking is, just like you just said, Mike, right now how many deer have been killed already. Mm-hmm. That is incredibly valuable data for the hunters to know and for your State Wildlife Agency to have.
And correct me if I'm wrong, here in Michigan, it was a 3-year span that they would take information from 1 and 2, and then the third year, because we didn't have it, they would take a swag at it and say, okay, we're going to be about here, and then go from there. But like you said, as we see it here on the app, from now on, after the season, I'll say February 1st, I think that's when all the seasons are over.
So February 3rd, 3 days after the season closes, everything should be in.
Right, Kip? You should have those numbers like, okay, we can start planning our yearly deer whatever more
That's right.
correctly.
Yep. And and you guys are even ahead of where we are in Pennsylvania now, because even though we require reporting, we don't have the ability to do, provide in-season harvest estimates like you guys can. So in Pennsylvania, everybody has to report. Pennsylvania Game Commission gets all the data. They have it all in, they analyze it, interpret it, and they make it available to the public in April of the year following the hunting season. So that is way before they have to start looking at season setting for the next year. But our season ends, mid-January. We still have to wait a few months. The way it used to be in Michigan with the survey that you did after the season, literally that data was not all compiled and analyzed and given to your deer team until June or July.
Right.
So that is way too late. You need that data done and analyzed so that the DNR, the deer biologist, can talk about it, and so that you can share it with the public in the spring, so that you can make proposals for the fall. Public can comment on them. That's the way it's supposed to work. It works that way in Pennsylvania because the data is done by April. But you guys are even light years ahead of us now, because literally 3 days after your deer season ends, you have the data. So this is a monumental step forward for the DNR, and this is a huge boom for all the hunters in Michigan. This is a really, really good thing for you guys.
Well, they're even breaking it down county by county, and they'll give you the totals for antlered and antlerless deer within that county, that breakup. And with what you're saying about how our system is set up now, is this going to be the future moving forward for other states? Is this going to be a model, or do we have other states that currently have something that may be just a little more robust?
I don't know of anybody that has a better system than you have right now.
Okay.
We said, I've been with the NDA for 20 years. Prior to that, I was the state of New Hampshire deer and bear biologist. So I worked for New Hampshire Fish and Game. New Hampshire Fish and Game still has one of the best deer management programs in the country. Mandatory checking. So I, as the deer biologist, I would get weekly updates throughout the whole season. And then during the season, I was always writing memos out to our department and to all the hunters. Hey, here's where we are today. Here's how many deer we've shot in each of the counties. Here's how we compared it to last year. So that was like the gold standard. They continue with that today, and they do great. However, you guys are even ahead of that. So I don't know what every single state does. I'll admit that. But I know what most of them do. And I do not know of a single state that has a better system than what you guys just implemented right now. So I can completely see other states looking at this and wanting to model this going forward, simply because you have real-time data, which is especially important. Think of your CWD zones where, hey, we want to harvest X number of antlerless deer here. A lot of hunters are shy to do that because, they don't want to over-harvest. Well, you literally know at any point during it, we have 100 does, we have 200, 500, whatever the case is. Right. So you have real-time data that can implement or influence hunter decisions in those units. So what you guys have now is the gold standard. I wish we had that in Pennsylvania.
Well, along with that, you played right into what I was getting ready to ask about, was using this tool for doe management. I got to think that this is going to help with herd management as far as maybe enticing more people to take doe in certain areas where they need them taken out by seeing these numbers in a real time, like you were saying. Don't you believe?
Absolutely, because you guys know how it is. Maybe you hunt a couple of days, you don't see anything. You go down to the coffee shop, and the rumor is, we're not seeing anything. Oh, it's because they shot all those deer, 5 miles away. They killed 10 and they killed 20. So suddenly, now you're less likely to shoot a doe because you've heard they're killing. Well, it's all rumor. And so now all that goes out the window. Hey, here's how many we've shot. So I think it can absolutely help people who are not sure if they want to shoot a doe or not to go ahead and and take one if that's needed. And at the same time, it helps people realize, what, maybe I choose to shoot this buck, maybe I choose to pass this deer, but I'm making the decision on what my value system is, what I want to do, and I have real data. I'm not listening to the rumor mill, that's going on at the local bar or at the local coffee shop. So I think it's going to be good for hunters, and it's going to be tremendous for the agency going forward, which then helps them make better proposals and management decisions, which ultimately is better for hunters.
Well, like it happened this year, the NRC voted and they made some recommendations. They made the changes, and then the data came out afterwards, like you talked about, and it was like
people were high.
You even did a story on it. That's what tipped me off, that you knew a little bit about this, but it was like, so after this year, now that we have this system, that should never happen again. Like we talked about, that we're going to have the data in Michigan in the spring. By June, whenever the DNR makes their recommendations, the NRC should make sound science decisions.
Should.
Right?
Should.
Okay.
That's exactly right. And hunters now get to be better engaged in that process, because the DNR can provide that data early in the year for hunters to see, to comment on. Then that gives the agency an opportunity to explain what the proposals are, defend them if need be. But it allows hunters to be part of that whole process, which hunters absolutely should be engaged in it. So
you're absolutely right, because if at the end of the season I'm going to go look in my Iron County up in the UP of Michigan, and I'm going to take a look at what was set out, because for years in Iron County in the UP, they said we didn't have enough deer. Maybe in the northern zone of my county, but where I was knee deep in deer, and I'm like, please! And it took them 10 years to figure it out to say I could shoot one. So hopefully, we can get that resolved in this information. And speaking of getting engaged, one of the questions is, like in Indiana, where can they find the collaboration with the Deer Association? Maybe in Indiana, can we go to the website and find a spot where we could find a local branch in Indiana?
Sure can. Yep, you can go to our website, which actually is completely revamped as of about 2 weeks ago. Yes, they can go there, search, click on Indiana, find our branch network so that they can see, hey, here's the branches, here's the contact or the people from the volunteers there. So, yep, they absolutely can do that.
There you go. I brought it up as you spoke. I clicked on Indiana. You got the Indiana Heartland branch, Purdue University branch, the Southern Indiana QDMA branch. So there you go, Mark. Get a hold. If you're close to one of those, you could probably give them a call. They're probably going to be hosting some events here come springtime. That's usually when the events are held. But It's that getting the states involved, like here in Michigan, having you come over and support what's ever going on. It just makes the system so much easier to go with that.
I saw the link on there. It said the Southern Indiana QDMA branch. Y'all have joined forces. I mean, it's basically National Deer Alliance now, right?
National Deer Association.
Association, I'm sorry. National Deer Association. Are they still working hand in hand with the local co-ops, like on a state level, then down to the local level? Y'all still got a hand in that?
We sure do, and we have some employees in Missouri specifically that work every day with those cooperatives, similar to the shared position we used to have in Michigan.
Yep.
So yes, we're still big fans of co-ops. We still work with them on a very regular basis. We still continue to produce new educational materials, videos, etc., to help them be successful. So we're big believers in the value of co-ops, and so yes, we're big fans. We continue to work with them.
I always hear people still talking about QDMA, and they use that interchangeably along with the NDA. And I just want to make sure to get that point out as well. And actually, we miss both of the gals who worked on the state level here. We worked with them quite a bit, and we need somebody like that back here again, pushing for our co-ops.
Right, exactly. So, just people out there, you want to get involved in this whole big picture, start with your local branches, in your area, in your state. Mark, you're in Indiana. We're here in Michigan. Denny in Illinois. That's where it starts. It starts at home, and it's fun to meet people. And obviously, when you meet people, what do? You talk about deer hunting.
And there's usually a cookout involved.
Right.
And there might be a few beverages along the way. I won't say what kind, but there might be a few of those as well.
So
I tell you what, we're bumping up here. Let's
get to a break because we got a couple more questions.
We'll take our next break, and we'll be right back after.
PSE Archery has always dominated the speed category. Now, the most revolutionary cam system ever to hit the market has perfected the shooting experience. Introducing PSE's Evolve Cam System, featuring extremely high let-off capabilities and the smoothest draw cycle in history. No other cam system has ever delivered this level of total comfort and total control. Experience PSE. Experience performance.
All right, we're back. Third segment of the show. And before we took off, we're talking about this mandatory deer check,
which they've had in Pennsylvania for years. So we're having Kip come onto the show to ease everybody's, give them a little medicine. Hey, it's going to be okay, guys. A little pat on the back.
The biggest thing we need, Kip, we got to make sure that the opening weekend of firearm deer season here in Michigan, that the state site does not crash. If it does, there's going to be trouble. Has that ever happened that you know of to any of these people that kick these off?
I don't know that it has, but hey, just the fact that there's at least the potential, because you have that many hunters, that many people in the woods killing that many. How awesome is that?
It is.
It's not like we're a podunk state where there's all of 100 people and they might shoot one deer today.
Yeah, right.
How cool is it you have that many people going hunting that, there's potential that it's going to crash the internet. I think that's awesome.
Well, the Total Archery Challenge did that this year. They had a whole new system, a whole new server to sign up for these big mountain archery shoots. And the first three of them, every state when they kicked off, they crashed the site. So,
have you ever been to a Total Archery Challenge?
I have not. But I'm a big bow hunter, so I think I would like that.
I tell you what, got one. You and your family would enjoy it. They would love it. So
it's a blast.
It is a blast. But we'll talk about that at another time. But as we get into this mandatory deer, one of the biggest things, actually there's a couple, one of the biggest things that people are having angst about is telling the DNR their location. In the app, you go in, they're going to ask you for coordinates, and you can drop a pin. Like Chad Stewart said, they had one shot in Mexico. They've had a few swimming in Lake Michigan. But should people really be fearful that, by dropping a pin at an intersection or somewhere close in the area, they don't have to put it right there, but they could actually go to the intersection because you can move the pin around anywhere you want, and they know if you did or didn't touch it, they said. So should people be afraid of that, or should we just relax? Come on.
Yeah, people can relax with that. And I understand there's always conspiracy theorists, etc. The reality of it is that data for the DNR is useful because it not only gives them the number of bucks and does that are shot in your state, but it gives them where they were shot. So they can break that out into the different deer management units. And that's what's really important. If we said this year in Michigan, we're going to shoot 100,000 bucks and 100,000 does. Well, that's a little meaningful. But if you say, hey, here's how many bucks we shot in each of the counties and in each of the DMUs, and that's what's really valuable. And that's why the DNR wants that location data. They're not looking to track somebody specifically or say, all right, Mike, let's see, where'd you go? I'm going to go check that gut pile.
Yeah.
If you're doing something wrong, they might go out and, and search that area a little bit.
Yep.
But for anybody who is, law-abiding hunters, and the vast majority of us are, those people, you don't need to worry about that at all. That just ensures that the DNR has that harvest data tied to a deer management unit so that gives them the best ability to be successful managing deer. That's how they figure out in the future how many antlerless deer we need to take in this area, and how the health of the deer herd is doing. So, so it's not like they're going to come follow you around. They're not going to check all that. That's just to ensure that they get the best data they can to do the best job managing deer. So abide by the law. Don't worry about that at all.
And you hit the nail on the head with what I wanted you to say, because like I talked about Iron County, right? I'm hoping to see, and I don't know, maybe they'll provide a map or something with pins or something, but I want to see the southern half of the county have more where I believe there are more deer than the northern county, like they have been saying, to prove the point. So, we haven't had many up to the north, so we're kind of right because there's more to the south. And that's the way it should be. And I'm hoping this is the data that can provide it in a map form that you can pull up a county and go, look, everything was.
When we used to go to the check stations, up until now we're no longer going to do that. But we would take a plat book, or not a plat book, but they take a county book out, and it'd have all of the sections, township sections, and you'd say, okay, I'm in section 12, 13, 14, whatever, and they put a mark there. So it's a square mile. So what's the difference? You pinpoint to a square mile. That's pretty specific. So
right. So everybody, Kip Adams says, relax, enjoy your harvest. Put a pin, approximate where you took it, help the DNR out, and I think we're going to like the results. Another question. I know this is true because I read it on Facebook.
You did your homework this week.
I know, right? So there was a post, and somebody went off on the Amish community in Michigan is not going to report any of their deer. This is why I don't have any deer in my county, because they shoot everything. So with that being said, Michigan has about 11,000, roughly, Amish people, whereas Pennsylvania's got like 75,000. So I'm going to ask you, in a situation like that, how would the DNR go about? Do they throw a swag in about it, or how they look into that?
They still have to report like everybody else. So the law doesn't say, you have to report your deer unless, you live in an Amish community, or unless you live here or there. You have to report your deer. If you buy a hunting license, you're going hunting, you got to report it. So I get it, because we, as you said, we have a lot of Amish in Pennsylvania. I live right on the Pennsylvania-New York border. I live 2.5 miles from the border. There's a big Amish community just across the line in New York. So I see buggies go by my house every day, and we hear the exact same things here. They shoot all the deer. They do this. They do that. The reality of it is they're hunters. And in some cases, they take a bunch of deer, but they still have to report them as well. And there's more than one way to report deer. So, whether they choose to do it, through the internet or a phone or some way else, they still have to report them like everybody else. So, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I think Chad Stewart said that they're going to actually try to get some officers to go into those communities and help facilitate the reporting of the deer. Because, obviously it's a different lifestyle. The technology doesn't translate to their communities. So they're going to make an effort here in Michigan as well. So, Danny, it looks like people here said they're going to drop their pin on your house. So you might wind up with about 20 deer taken out of your backyard.
A lot of deer taken out of my house.
Oh, my goodness.
Remember, I was the quiet guy?
Yeah.
When I'm being led away in cuffs?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, right.
And then I'm just going to say, live on, Kip Adams.
There you go. So, no, we're excited about this. When we started talking about this, I hunted in Illinois. I want to say it was 2017, 16, 17, 18, somewhere in there. And that was the first experience I ever had with reporting telecheck for a deer that I had taken. And then I did it again in Indiana 3 years ago. And it's really easy. It's a simple, theirs was phone calls. But now we're going to put it right on your phone. It's an app. Bang, you go through the checklist and answer the questions, and you're done. I don't see what the angst is all about, but I am really, really excited to see what information we can glean out of this and where it goes. From here, what's the next step? What do we get out of this later on? Have you talked to any game agencies about maybe some kind of future information that they might possibly be able to get out of this?
Yeah, from a deer management end, it's great because you not only get that in-season stuff, but you get the numbers, and for the true locations of those pins, it gives you the ability, particularly from a state land perspective, but you can do it in private land as well. You can have research projects where all of a sudden, you can start looking at, GIS systems. Hey, what exactly are the vegetation features around, where these deer are being killed? If you're in an agricultural area, all of a sudden you find hey, maybe the vast majority, are harvested in young forest or in, forested areas, or, if you're in an area that's mostly forested, hey, we're seeing, the majority of our deer being harvested in open air, whatever the case is. So beyond just the straight deer management potential for this, there's all kinds of research potential, to continue to learn more about how deer are navigating these landscapes, which then you can share with hunters to help them be more successful. So, there's lots of possibilities here. And I will say this, we've talked thus far mostly about advantages to the State Wildlife Agency with us. A big advantage to hunters that if you haven't hunted under one of these systems, you may not realize is just simply the ability of, okay, I shot this deer, I have registered it now. Hey, all questions are done. Yeah. Perfect example. I was in Maryland 2 weeks ago for their opener. I had my young son there. He shot 3 does while we were there. We were super lucky. Maryland has a system. Literally, before we left the kill site, I'm on my phone. I'm on there online. I registered the deer. He shot 2 deer the first night, 1 deer the second night. They were all reported to the DNR before we ever left. So what that means is, hey, if somebody pulls us over, they're in the back of a truck going down the road, before it'll be okay, have you reported this yet? Were you going to report this? Let's make sure you're going to be legal. Now, if we get pulled over, hey, check the records. They can look, oh, you've already followed all the laws. Thank you for being a hunter. Have a good night. So it's a huge benefit to hunters as well, where suddenly, hey, you have had an opportunity to show you're following the rules, you're being a good sportsman or sportswoman, we're playing along. So it's just, that's a big benefit to hunters that, they may not be thinking of. They may just be looking at this as an inconvenience, but it's simple, it doesn't cost you anything, and it's very quick to do. So it's nothing but benefits for hunters.
That's it, right? It's both sides here. We've been asking for it here in the state of Michigan. You've been here in the state talking about it. People, it's our first full year of mandatory. This is what you wanted. Let's give it a whirl.
Let it run its course.
Let it run its course. And talking to Kip tonight, if this is the gold standard that Michigan's come up with, how can it not be a boon for the state of Michigan going forward?
Right.
There's a question out there, and Kip, would dropping a pin lead to a potential future hunting ban for a county that shows an overharvest of deer for management purpose? Do you think it would lead to a ban, or do you think it would just be maybe less, if they thought they took too many does, they might bring down less permits, correct?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely right. Yeah, it wouldn't be a ban. It would just be, a better management scenario. So situation where, okay, yeah, we maybe over harvested in, say, Ionia County this year. Well, next year it would allow them to know, okay, here's the system we have in place to try to manage this standardless harvest. We have seen from our data the last couple of years that we're over harvested. Let's tweak that so that doesn't happen. So it just provides, a finer management strategy to the DNR, which obviously helps the deer herd and then ultimately helps hunters. So yeah, it's not going to be a ban. It will just allow them to make better decisions from the DNR's level, which as hunters, that's what we want. We want them to be doing a good job.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And that perfectly said.
And all their information is instantaneous, where they can make that decision for the next season instead of, throwing a dart at it.
Right, like a June, July swag, and here we go kind of. Nope, we're going to know it in the springtime, just like Kip in Pennsylvania, April. We'll know it sometimes about then as well, and then they can make a couple of months decision and not rest recommendations, right? Yeah. So we're coming up on our last break. We got our final questions for Kip here, so when we come back, we're going to ask him.
All right, we're going to step outside, take a break. We'll be right back after this.
Acceleration is part of PSE's DNA. PSE pioneered the speed movement. Now they've developed the vapor category to help you find the most powerful bows on the market to fit you.
High speed equates to intense power and building the momentum you need to be successful. Are you a vapor shooter? Find out at psearchery.com.
All right, here we are. Welcome back. Fourth segment of the show. We've been talking about the mandatory deer check, a lot about that, about how it's going to help us, how it's going to help the DNR, how it's going to help the deer. So hopefully this is going to be a win-win-win. Kip, I'd ask you, how can we look into the future and see maybe some instances of this going further? And something that just popped into my mind because Danny and I and you were talking before the show about EHD and some recent outbreaks. Is that something that maybe we could report in the future, like, a pin drop of where EHD is, and you could see if it's spreading, through certain areas or not? I mean, is that something that's a possibility?
Well, I think there's lots of possibilities to provide information like that to the DNR, and there's more states taking more advantage of citizen science like that, where they're listening to what folks are seeing. So anything like that can help facilitate data getting to the DNR. And from a hemorrhagic disease end, they have to get their hands on those deer very quickly to be able to get a sample that's not spoiled, to test for us. So, I can totally see a system like this where people can not only call in to report it, but, they can show them exactly where it is, or maybe an animal they see that's rabid, or an animal they see that's acting strange, that's still moving, that, won't be there. If an officer comes out, they can drop a pin on where it was. So, there's lots of opportunities like this to help hunters become more engaged with the agency, the management side, the law enforcement side. So, I can see all those as being positives.
And another positive, I'm looking at the app right now on my phone, is that you can do a one-touch to report all poaching. So you don't have to look for the phone number, don't have to write it down. You can.
I've got it in my phone.
Literally,
it's on speed dial.
For the happy people.
Yeah.
You just click a button and away you go. So, but, possibilities are endless when you start going into this technical age. Question for you, Kip. On the website, you are known as Chief Conservation Officer. So the question is, since your title is Chief Conservation Officer, is that the same as a conservation officer, like police officer, or no?
That is not, and I get ribbed about that a little bit by some of my former colleagues who are law enforcement officers. Prior to the merger, I was QDMA's Director of Conservation. When we merged and became the National Deer Association, all of our employees at my level, rather than directors, we became chiefs. So, we have obviously our CEO, our chief financial officer, our chief development officer. Well, since I run our conservation program rather than director of conservation, because I'm a wildlife biologist by training, I became the chief conservation officer. So, I did a podcast shortly after the merger with some friends from New Hampshire, actually former law enforcement officers.
Oh boy!
Who have and so that's what they said. Kip, what? And they knew. I mean, they know that. They said so after all these years as a wildlife biologist, now you finally become a wildlife officer, a conservation officer. So they had a good laugh about it. But no, for me, I'm a trained wildlife biologist. I work in the conservation side and the biology side, and no law enforcement training at all. Certainly have a lot of respect for our law enforcement folks, but
Amen.
I don't have any training in law enforcement.
All right. Next question. Does the NDA typically attend trade shows? Do they do public shows? I'm assuming that's probably up to the local branches if they want to go into those shows.
We have a lot of local branches that do local trade shows, and certainly Michigan, probably more there than anywhere else. But many of our branches across the U.S. go to trade shows. From the national organization standpoint, we always go to the ATA and to the SHOT Show. We always hit those two. We occasionally will hit some others, but we're always at those.
How is next question? How is CWD looking in Pennsylvania, and how's it looking there for the outlook for Pennsylvania with CWD?
Well, unfortunately, it continues to spread. We've had up to 7 different disease management areas now. The good thing is there's more hunters engaged on that topic and knowledgeable about it than ever before. Part of the problem is 5 of our 7 disease management areas are the result of a captive deer farm that tested positive. So, it started there, not in the wild. It was in captivity. And, the unfortunate thing is there are, tens or hundreds of thousands of hunters in those areas that are then negatively impacted, because of that. So anyway, it does continue to spread. There's a bigger fight today than ever before to help limit that, which bodes us, I think, well for the future.
All right. Are you allowed to bait in Pennsylvania?
Cannot
bait.
Cannot bait anything. No, can't bait deer, can't bait bear. Obviously can't bait ducks or doves or anything like that. So yeah, there are some urban deer zones that do allow you to bait, but that's a very tiny number. So 99% of Pennsylvania, you can't bait anything.
Okay. What's the thought on the synthetic scents as opposed to the real urine?
In Pennsylvania, you can still use real urine outside of disease zones. If you're in a disease zone, you cannot. That has to be synthetic. Our take on that is, the actual infectious materials in deer urine is so minute. For example, saliva is about 10 times, or the infectious materials in saliva is about 10 times as much as urine. The infectious materials in the muscle are about 100,000 times greater than it is in urine. So states that ban urine are certainly being ultra cautious, and some states just have a zero tolerance, risk factor for that. So our stance as a national organization is, what? There are so many other ways that CWD is more likely to be transmitted than it is in urine. That we haven't supported urine bans simply because there are way more lower holes in the bucket than that natural urine from our standpoint. We totally get it. The states, that want to eliminate all potential risks, but man, from CWD being moved around, it's far more likely to be moved other ways than with urine.
And last but not least of the random questions, actually one just popped one in. I don't really think it's the way. The question is, it's just the way for the DNR to get more money. I really don't think having mandatory check is a way to get more money. I think it's a way to get better use out of our money. Does that make sense?
I see that.
Because you're getting better information, it's going to be better return to the...
I would rather have our officers out patrolling, doing their due diligence out in the field for poachers and people doing illegal things versus being at a check station if this is taking place at the check station. I know here in Michigan we've cut back on our check stations, our time, how often the DNR officials or biologists are actually there to check deer in. Those windows are shrinking and actual sites are going away. And I would rather see those officers out doing what they're supposed to be doing. I mean, does that make sense? I mean, is that on the right track? Do you think?
Yeah. I don't think this is not a money-making thing at all. I mean, and this is all about better data and data more quickly to the deer biologists so that they can make better decisions and provide that to the public much earlier in the year. Yeah, this is not a money thing at all.
Okay.
So people watching our podcast, they've been hearing about the Deer Association. How can they help?
They can certainly become a member. Nobody fights harder for deer and deer hunters' rights than the National Deer Association. So they can become a member. They can use, go to our website and use our materials, to help them learn more about deer or how to enhance habitat, or maybe that will encourage them to take somebody else to the woods and mentor them. So if they like deer, I'd welcome them to check our website out. I think that they certainly will find things there that they like. Definitely will see something there that helps teach them a little bit more about how to get close to these deer in the fall. And maybe they would join and help support us in the fight to ensure the future of wild deer, wildlife habitat, and hunting.
Something I got a question on. Since QDMA and NDA merged, before that happened, I took the Deer Steward 1 class and was looking at Deer Steward 2 and possibly using our camp as a host site for one of those. Is the NDA still doing that program or not?
We sure are. And, and you know, we do basically all the same educational programs that we did, you know, when we were QDMA before the merger. So, yeah, Deer Steward is still extremely popular. In fact, we have added additional Deer Steward modules so that there are more opportunities. People would go through Deer Steward 1 and Deer Steward 2, and they'd be like, okay, what's next?
Yep.
We want another one. So we have continued to develop more of those classes. So, yeah, all the stuff that I get to do, Mike, teaching Deer Steward is one of my favorite for sure. So I'm very proud that we continue those. And Dan, early on, you mentioned, you know, that 15 or 17 million acres of impact. That's where that comes from is folks that have been through our Deer Steward program, you know, that we measure, you know, the acreage that they either own or manage. So since 2007, when we started that program to now, folks who have gone through Deer Steward, that's the acreage that they manage. So we're super proud. That's an incredible footprint of wildlife habitat in our country that's been impacted by folks who have gone through that program.
That was one of the things that I thoroughly enjoyed. I mean, I try to suck up as much as I can about deer, but I got to say, those are that Deer Steward class program. I enjoyed that so much. I learned so much about that and tried to employ some of that at our camp. We've had a bunch of turnover at our camp, and right now we're kind of in a lull, and I'm hoping that I can relight a fire in some way to get that going again and try to get a co-op. I tried to start a co-op, and it's really hard. You know, we're up in big tracts of land, club land, and you know, it's breaking down those barriers and those walls between camps and you know, what people their philosophy of hunting. I mean, I watched an 80-year-old man in our camp bawl his eyes out because we shot too many does. You know? And you know, I had to have class right there by the campfire. You know, opening night of deer season, and it's hard. And I felt for him. I mean, nobody loved deer more than that guy. He absolutely loved them, and it's breaking down those barriers in education. So,
well, and that's what kind of Mike and I have evolved as we get into all this stuff is more of the educating people, getting you on the show, getting Chad on the show, getting the word out about information, especially when we can get information from like you in other states that says, hey guys, it's okay, you know, relax, breathe. We got Mark in Indiana, you know, we're reaching out and just getting out the information. And like you said, the Deer Steward courses that you have online, you know, you can go check those out over at your website. It just getting that information, teaching and passing it on. So, you know,
we're bumping up real close to the time you need to
wrap
up your Kip.
We're gonna let me take a real quick. Okay, we got all the questions answered. Kip, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It's been great. We're gonna probably in a couple months. We might circle back with you and find out how your hunting went, because I really wanted to talk to you about getting your kids out hunting and you out hunting, and maybe we can talk a little bit more. Maybe getting together, maybe at a TAC challenge.
Yeah, maybe we go to Pennsylvania this year.
I'm on it.
You know, we can travel to Pennsylvania,
right? So
there you go. Heck yeah. No, I've enjoyed this, guys. Feel free to circle back with me anytime. I'm glad to come back and talk, you know, deer hunting or whatever you want. So yeah, don't lose my number.
All right. Well, we hope to see you at ATA this year. If good Lord willing, creeks don't rise, we're going to try to get our tails over there for that. And if we do, we'll stop in and say hello.
Absolutely, yeah. If I don't see you before, I'll see you in January. And good luck this deer season.
You as well, sir. You take care. And
Thank
go
you.
ahead. We'll let you go now, and we'll talk soon.
All right, sounds good.
All right, take care.
See you guys.
You know, it's great to talk to like-minded people who are just got a passion and dedicate their whole life just to deer hunting.
20 years already he's been over at QDMA, the Deer Association, and before that he was a biologist in New Hampshire.
Yep.
You know, and it just getting these people on the show, I think, as we look at it and talk, getting his knowledge out, Chad Stewart's knowledge out. You know, what I've learned in the last month, you know, about the mandatory deer, but also the where our hunting should really focus on.
Yeah.
It's not the kids. It's that 20, 30 something.
Yeah, which makes complete sense. And, you know, when he first said that, I was kind of like, But, you know, the more Chad talked about it, and then tonight with Kip, it makes complete sense. You've got to get people who've got the means and the access to get out and do it and teach them. So.
Absolutely. And
thanks, Tom Ginsel. Thanks for the comment.
Yeah, and Tom Ginsel, don't worry. We know Tom. Come on. They always have food and drink. You're in, right?
That's
so
right.
it's don't give away your secret spot. I know, I get it. But I just, reach out in your state if you're listening in another state. Mark Coleman can reach out in Indiana to the local branch there. We've been to a few of these, whether it was the co-op up north. We've been to Let 'em Go, Let 'em Grow. We've been to the
one up in Alpena.
The one up in Alpena.
Anchor Creek.
Yep.
Matter of fact, the guy who started the Anchor Creek co-op up there this morning, he hit a deer with his truck.
Yes, he did. I saw that.
So everything's all right. Damaged the car a little bit, but just want to give a shout out that everybody was teasing him, saying, "Hey, you got to report that deer. You got to put a pin drop down. You got to burn a tag." So that's the other thing. This time of year, right now, when I'm driving in from uptown to downtown here to work in the morning and it's dark, I'm constantly scanning the sides now. I mean, because it's dark in the mornings when I go to work. So it's that time of year, man. It's a good time of the year, but you also got to be a little cautious when you're on the road.
I know, right? And I said it about squirrels. Mm-hmm. I've seen a ton of squirrels run over, so they're on the move. So it's fall, right?
Yep.
It's the 21st, so small game season has opened up here in Michigan. I don't know if they're running from bullets or just looking for a nut, right?
Yeah.
Having Kip on it was awesome for him to tell us Pennsylvania side of the mandatory deer check. Folks, let's give it a whirl.
Yeah, we really don't have a choice. It's coming. So just do your part. Check your deer in, and, we'll see how this all plays out this year. Before we let everybody go, though, I do want to check, because I'm watching the totals increase here. I'm going to give it one last hit here. We started out with 9,672 deer, and we are now an hour and a half later at 9,677. So there's been 5 more deer reported since.
And I think... whatever half hour after sunset was the legal shooting time, it would be about 8:30, I think, is what it is about.
Okay.
So
hopefully everything's been reported.
And truthfully, if you're a little bit,
if you're a little late,
come on, you're getting it done.
Exactly, that's the point.
I get it. Well, there's 72 hours. Well, come on now, folks. This is our first year. We already talked to Chad. It's going to be a little bit of a learning year for everybody. So get out there, do what you need to do, because I think this is an opportunity for the deer hunters to say, yes, this is what we want.
Absolutely.
Now, sure, are there going to be bumps? Absolutely. So,
well, I'll tell you what, next week, who we got on?
Dean Smith,
who has just recently come back from Alaska.
Yeah, so we're going to talk to him.
On a fly-in hunt.
A fly-in hunt. We're going to talk to Dean Smith. We're going to have some great pictures. Talk about his hunt. And that will be the last show of September. Then from there, we're going into October.
Wow.
And then we're going to have... they're not... I know we got one for the first week, and we're working on that one for the second week.
Yep.
But I'm hoping we're going to be talking about maybe some kills.
Yeah, hopefully. So everybody get out there. Get after it. It's coming quick. My plans were to go to camp on the opener October 1st, but once again, work has possibly reared its ugly head, and I may not be able to go.
I will be leaving Thursday night or Friday, and I should be up in a tree Saturday morning. Saturday morning. So,
well, I hope so. I hope I'm there with you, or not at your place, but at my place, and we'll just have to wait and see.
And then maybe later in the month we can get you up to the cabin. I'll be up there for a week. So,
all right, well, that'll do it for us this week, folks. For those of you who are listening on the podcast, make sure you go over to. If you're listening on iTunes, go over and give us a review. That helps us and helps those who help us. And make sure you give us a like, follow, share. Go over to NDA's social media pages. Give him a like, follow, share as well as Kip Adams. And for those of you watching here on the podcast, same thing. Give us a like, follow, share the show for us.
Absolutely. And last week we had Randy Stoppenhagen on. If you haven't paid attention to our Facebook, he finally connected on a 6x6.
6x6 elk out there in Idaho.
A big shout out to him. Thank you, Tammy, for reminding me. A big congratulations. Mike needs to retire, Mark Coleman says.
Mike would like to retire, but certain circumstances is not allowing him to. They're out of his control unless I win the lottery.
Right, and I'll
read between the lines.
Yeah, right. And so if you're listening Facebook Live, if you're catching us on YouTube, it'll be on YouTube in a few days. If you're watching us and listening to us on YouTube, remember to hit the subscribe button. That helps us as well.
That's right. Smash that thing.
Right? So, with that being said, everybody, you all have a great week. We'll be back next week with Dean Smith talking about flying into Alaska.
I love it.
All right.
We'll be back again next week.
This episode was brought to you by PSC Archery,
Deer Camp Coffee,
Buck Baits,
JPO Game Calls,
The Island Armory,
Pecker Max,
Sunrise Archery,
and C3 Better the Hunt technology.
Thanks for listening, and join us again here next week. Until then, remember, as we always like to say, if you're out on the water or in the woods, shoot straight and be safe until next week on the Up North Journal.